My name is Melissa Cohen, and this is my son,
Hi, I'm Ethan Cohen.
and we're going to share our story about Runx 1 FPD. So, my journey started off as a carefree Gen X kid, climbing trees and hopping fences and riding your bike till the streetlights came on. But I always had something different than my friends in the neighborhood. I always bled and bruised easily. And despite all that spirited play, we used to get accusations of abuse. Thankfully, my mom had documentation from when we were kids that we had some sort of platelet blood disorder. And bleeding and bruising just became a normal part of my life. In the 80s, my brother and I underwent blood testing. We went to a local clinic at our local hospital. The results did come up with some sort of unique coagulopathy, as they called it. But they really didn't have real answers for us other than we had long bleeding times. And that was pretty much it. So in 1988, I underwent my first surgery. I had a hernia that needed to be repaired, nothing major, except they knew I had a platelet or a blood disorder and they wanted to take their precautions. And so they gave me platelets prior to my surgery, and the surgery was successful. I had no real prolonged bleeding, and everything was good and quiet for a while. But the platelet really wasn't an issue until I got pregnant with my first child. And I was referred out to a hematologist at that point in my 20s. And with my pregnancy, they considered me high risk. So they wanted to know more. So this is when the investigation really started to take place. So my first pregnancy went pretty uneventful. My second pregnancy, however, a year later, I had prolonged bleeding, especially postpartum. And my son Ethan here, who's my second, he ended up being born with a heart defect called a coarctation of the aorta. So he eventually had some blood work done. And they wanted to dig a little deeper too because he had low platelet also. So a doctor actually had ordered some DNA testing for him, and that's when Runx 1 came on the scene for us. In his DNA microarray analysis, he had a deletion of Runx 1. However, during that time, we're talking 15 years ago, it came back as unclear. They didn't know what Runx 1 was at that point. That was always in the back of my mind that my son had this hit, but we didn't know what it truly was. They really couldn't describe it to us. I had a brother who ended up becoming sick. He ended up being diagnosed with AML, or acute myelocytic leukemia. And knowing that my son had that Runx mutation back in the day, it really started to spark some things that maybe we should start going down that avenue for myself, because I had this platelet disorder too. I went to a doctor in New York. I was tested for the Runx 1, and long and behold, for whatever reason, at that time, my Runx 1 came back negative. I was pretty much told I didn't have it, although I had all the signs and symptoms of it. So it wasn't until my third pregnancy when things got really scary. My third pregnancy, I had hemorrhaged, and I was diagnosed with preeclampsia, and I had to receive blood transfusions. And it was a pretty terrifying experience going through all of that. At that point, I really wanted to know if what this Runx 1. It was years later, so maybe we can find out what the unclear significance was. I went and saw a new hematologist, and I had asked them that, my son had this a microarray DNA analysis done, and can I get the same exact test that he was given? Because the testing that I was giving was a different type of test, and I was coming out negative. So let's try what he was tested for. And sure enough, it came back that I had a Runx 1 deletion, which come to find out that some of the standard testing can miss deletions. From what the doctors explained to me, that you do have a good Runx gene from one parent and then the faulty gene from another parent. And now that I know these things, I feel like I can finally advance and move forward, and I can tell my son that, we're going to figure this all out.
Yeah, I had no clue what it was. I guess when she found out, she had it for a while, and I wasn't really aware of it, and I just found out recently. I bruise very easily. Um, like I always fell off my bike. I always went for bike rides like her, and I'm a, I always get bruised. It would hurt like if you touched it, but like I knew it was there. I just ignored it. I'd get right back up and just keep going. I didn't think it was too serious. I just thought, because over the years, I've had a lot of health problems, and I've been in and out of hospitals, and I didn't think the bruising was really anything. I thought it was just like, okay, I know my mom bruises easily, so I was like, okay, I knew it was from her, but I didn't know what exactly it was, and it took her a while to tell me eventually, like, what is part of it, the whole rung swan and mutation itself and how to understand how it works. It was shocking. Um, I never heard of this thing before. I did some research myself, like on Google, and you know, and obviously my mom, she's been knowing this for a while. Um, I didn't know really how to respond. I was upset, knowing like, because it's a rare, defect, and just knowing that you have it and knowing that other people around you don't, you kind of feel left out, like not you don't kind of fit in.
It was hard for me, how do I tell my kid that he may have a 40% chance of lifetime risk of developing a blood cancer? And that's a hard thing to tell your kids. and
Yeah,
and
and
as a mom, you get that mom guilt. Like, I did this, it's all my fault, I passed this on unaware. I mean, I was unaware at the time, that I had these mutations. He had that DNA testing done when he was a little kid, and it came back unclear significance. So it was difficult for me to even tell him what he had. But once all the dots were connected, it was time to sit down. My family, we sat down, and had like a family meeting, and we talked about it and discussed it all, and who wants to get tested. And so I had other family members that also agreed to get testing for themselves. My mother was tested, and she was found to have it also. And but she's in her 60s, and she's doing well. So we have hope. I don't want to think of this as, like the demise, having the RUNX1 mutation, by any means. After 40 years of searching, I finally received my diagnosis of RUNX1 FPD, and also had some additional testing done. The next generation testing came on the scene, and also came up with some extra mutations, or somatic mutations, that I had. I want to share my story because I want people to know that,
you're not alone.
you're not alone, and to make sure that you keep advocating for yourself. Don't take no for an answer, and sometimes it may take time, and finding the right doctors is an important thing too. If you feel like something's not going right, or it just doesn't make sense to you, just keep trying, and eventually you'll get your answers. So that was our story. I hope it helped you, for whoever you are out there that looking for their own answers.